Hello and welcome. My name is Andrew, and I wanted to show you some really cool miniatures and some powerful techniques that I recently learned. Here are the finished products, the minis that I painted. These two miniatures are from One Page Rules. One Page Rules is a revamped version of tabletop gaming that's easy to learn and modify based on how you want to play. To top it off, a game of One Page Rules takes about 35 minutes. Imagine how many games you could play on a game night with your buddies with that speed. The two factions I chose to paint were the Saurian Star Hosts and the Robot Legions. The Star Hosts were created by ancient frog mages and spend their days looking for planets that the frog mages can utilize in making more Star Hosts. The Robot Legions were created by high elves to be used as unskilled labor. After some time, the robots rebelled and began working for themselves. It's also worth mentioning that the robots have mages and shamans, and I didn't expect that, but that's pretty cool. With the lore out of the way, let's jump to the painting. So I start with the robot. Canonically, they're white and gray, but I wanted a brown robot, and here's why. I wanted to try a technique coined undershot shading by two channels, Goobertown Hobbies and Dana Howell. The idea is that certain colors, if sprayed underneath a model, can create really cool shadows and shading. However, this effect is typically most effective when one uses speed paints or contrast paints because of their high pigment and good flow. I thought blue and brown would look pretty cool together. They are sort of like complementary colors since orange is in the brown family. I start with a base coat of brown for this robot, specifically Satchel Brown from the Army Painter Speed Paint line. Once that's on the model, I go over it with a paintbrush the old-fashioned way. I used Oak Brown from the Army Painter, so I can have a nice dark undertone for this robot. But I still want some of that Satchel Brown to show through. Then I used red on the cloak. Now I'm not sure why a robot would need a cloak, but I'm guessing it's to help break line of sight or add cover on the battlefield. Regardless of why this robot has a cloak, I love this sculpt. It's simply beautiful. As you can see, my Army Painter Dragon Red was misbehaving. It took a few tries of shaking and vortexing to get a good consistency. Finally, I was able to get a good red base coat. I then used mid-gray for the joints. I didn't want the joints to be too dark, so we could see some of the undershot shading later. And for that power cable, I used dark stone. And I must confess, I cheated and I used Slaughter Red speed paint for the underside of the cloak. That red was just too frustrating, and I couldn't keep getting upset over it. Painting is my escape from the world, and I hate it when I get frustrated by it. So sometimes I have to cheat and use speed paints to do the heavy lifting. Now that all the base coat colors are down, I'm going to try undershot shading. I used Beowulf Blue speed paint for this. Right when that first squirt of blue hit the model, I knew this was going to be cool. I could start seeing some of the shadows forming from the deep blue color evenly spreading across the underside of the model. Now, as a warning, if you're going to use speed paints or contrast paints through your airbrush, be ready to clean it often. These two paint types dry super fast and are prone to clogging up your airbrush. I always had my trigger finger ready on my airbrush cleaner bottle. Well, here's the result from undershot shading. I think it's pretty cool. It's actually quite stylized. But don't mind my extremely dry hands. I'm cursed with chronic dry skin all year round. Now I'm going back with acrylic paints and highlighting the raised areas. I'm not touching the shadowed areas because they're already done. We're trying to convey a shadow, and I don't want to lose that. Okay, this is looking good. Next, I'm going to add some fluorescence to the model. In my mind, the cannon's core, its barrel, and the robot's eyes would be glowing. To achieve this glowing effect, I gently sprayed some white ink on the source of the glowing areas. I made sure the sources of light would be brighter than the surrounding areas to really sell that object source lighting or OSL effect. Next, I airbrushed the Data System Glow Effect paint from the Army Painter Fanatic line. I was pretty happy with this, and will definitely try this more in the future. OSL is something that every mini painter wants to get better at, and this could be sort of a speed paint version of it. Full disclosure, this is my first time using fluorescent paint, but I think I did a pretty good job with it. I've tried OSL before, but I'm still getting the hang of it. Last, I'm going to use this wooden checker piece as the base. The robot will fit perfectly on this wooden checker. So first, I cut out some cork from this cork sheet into the general shape of the base, and then any crumbles that come off of it, I keep that to add as debris on the base later. Then I glued that cork on the base, glued the debris on the base, and then I painted it black. I wanted this robot to be in a volcanic setting or maybe in a dark cave, so I thought black would be a great color for this base. Last, I attached the robot to his forever home, and then I spray white ink on the base, followed by the fluorescent paint again. Okay, that was really fun. The sculpt was detailed and it took the paint really well. Let's see if we can't get the same type of cool results with the Star Host. Unlike the robot, I'm going to start the Star Host with a zenithal highlight. I used black paint and white ink from above. From there, I sprayed thin alien purple everywhere. Once that's on, I sprayed Beowulf blue and ultramarine blue from the top. Reptiles have counter shading, which is a color pattern where the top of the animal is darker than the bottom. It's typically used to disrupt line of sight and make the animal blend in with the background. Or maybe on their home planet, star hosts blend in with a purple or blue vegetation. Who knows? Next, I used lead belcher to start covering the metallic sections. Then I went over these with white. White pops against that blue and purple really well. I'm also trying black line for the first time in this process. That's the process of adding black between lines of armor to add some more depth. For the scales, I used lighter shades of blue to build up a gradient or highlight. This was a fun exercise. I've wanted to do scales for quite some time, but I just never got around to it. And they're cool, but they are a little bit of a challenge, so this did take me a few tries to get it how I wanted. With the spines on the back and the tail, I used lighter blues to add highlights. For the plasma rifle, I did the same process of spraying a fluorescent colored paint onto the model. In this case, I used plasma coil blue. I also sprayed some on the body and the chin to show that the light source is the rifle and that light is bouncing off areas nearby. For the lizard, I also used a checker for the base, but in this case, I just added some glue to the base. Then I dunked the base in a bag of sand, and it took it pretty well. Then I painted that with some dark speed paints. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. I really enjoyed working on these two models. I went out of my comfort zone and tried something new for both. I will definitely try undershot shading more. It was really fun, and I got some really cool effects. If you want to try undershot shading yourself, I've linked the 2 videos of it in the description of this video. The videos go over color combinations and some tips and tricks for undershot shading. I've also linked one-page rules in my video description as well. Check out their Patreon, they've got great discounts, and check out their My Mini Factory page. Last, I've linked Goobertown Hobbies and Dana Howell as well. I was introduced to undershot shading and general mini painting by these 2 channels. If you're new to mini painting or just want a new perspective, I would highly recommend checking out these 2 channels. Brent from Goobertown often showcases some really interesting techniques and painting challenges, where Dana always has great perspectives on hobbying, mini painting, and so much more. For my next project, I hope to work on more of the Star Hosts. I love this model, I love reptiles, and I love sci-fi. Mixing these seems to be something you can't mess up. Plus, there's a huge alligator model with giant rockets on its shoulders, and I mean, who doesn't like that? I'll end this video with a short message about my channel. And before you click away, I ask that you just stay tuned for a little bit longer. Before I say anything, I want to make it clear that I'm not expecting anyone to do anything. There are no obligations here. You're a free human being, and you can do whatever you want. Now, in the past, I tried to have a Patreon, but the monthly subscription system wasn't for everyone, and I can totally understand that. Sometimes we want to support a channel, but can't afford to make that monthly payment. Or maybe that channel is moving in a direction that we don't really like anymore, so supporting them doesn't make any sense. I'm proposing a new way for my viewers to support my work, if they choose to. My proposition is that when I announce my next project, and if that piques your interest, you could give a one-time donation to my Venmo with the intent of supporting that project. Those donations would go straight to funding that project, getting new supplies for better videos, things like that. For example, if I'm working on, let's say, the Star Hosts, and that interests you because you play Star Hosts and one-page rules, you might be inclined to support this project. Or this donation could be labeled as support for a better video camera or better microphone. For those who support my work, I'd be more than happy to give you shoutouts, do giveaways, painting tutorials, paint-alongs, things like that, whatever that these people would like to see. Think of this as Patreon without a subscription fee. You donate when you want to, and you don't donate when you don't want to. Now, if you like what I'm doing, and you just can't afford to support my work right now, that's totally fine. I also have a free Discord server, which I've linked in my video's description too. On this Discord, we talk about our hobbies, we talk about nerdy stuff. All the people on this Discord server are just nerds who have some common interest. I am a huge nerd at heart, and I love to see what others are up to. So, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and maybe learned something new. Now be sure you check out those other two channels, and be sure that you also check out One Page Rules. You won't be disappointed. Until next time, happy painting, friends.